Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is leading a group of GOP lawmakers on a visit to the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, McCarthy is using the trip to highlight a surge of migrants at the southern border and to raise concerns over a Biden administration decision to end pandemic restriction, as Title 42, which allowed border authorities to send migrants back to their home countries.
The trip also comes as leaked audio recordings revealed that Kevin McCarthy said he intended to tell then-President Trump to resign over the Capitol insurrection. Just moments ago, McCarthy was asked about that recording. Here's what he said.
Well, first of all, let me just answer your question since you don't want to talk about the border. The reporter never asked me that question. The reporter came to me the night before he released the book, and my understanding was he was saying that I asked President Trump to resign. No, I never did, and that's what I was answering. If you're asking now, did I tell my members that we're going to ask them if I told any of them that I said President Trump? The answer is no. Well, I'm glad you asked that question, but what's more important than something that happened 15 months ago on a private conversation with about 4 other people is what's happening here right now.
With us now to talk about this and so much more, we have Bill Kristol. He's the editor-at-large for The Bulwark and director of Defending Democracy Together. Bill, you heard Kevin McCarthy. He pivoted away from that. Do you think the revelations of one of his ideas of getting President Trump to resign because the insurrection was so bad, do you think that costs Kevin McCarthy ultimately in any way?
I'm struck whenever a politician says, I'm glad you asked that question. You're not glad you asked that question, right? And of course, he just semi-lied and semi-constructed a very complicated explanation to say that to cover over the obvious truth. You know, I'm so struck by the interview you just had in the last segment with the Ukrainian politician who is fighting for her country under threat and under danger, doing her best to rally support around the world. And that's a serious political figure trying to do what you should be doing. And here we have in the U.S. Political leaders, unfortunately a majority, I'd say, of the elected officials and candidates in one of our 2 major parties, behaving in ways that are just so low and sort of petty and dishonest compared to these Ukrainian elected officials. 20 or 30 years ago, I would have said, well, gee, that's a country coming out of the Soviet Union and they don't really have a democratic political culture yet. Now they put us to shame.
Bill, let me ask you about the timing of this trip to the border when the narrative from leader McCarthy is Trump and I are good. We talked it over. He understands. Everything works out. But this, of course, immigration, one of former President Trump's top issues, if he's trying to get back into his good graces and bring along those Trump allies in the conference, is this the reason that this is happening today?
Well, I think the main reason might be the death of the National Guard, the Army trooper, and they're taking advantage of that, frankly. And again, that's what provoked me. Listening to your excellent interview with the Ukrainian legislator, seriously in a foreign capital, trying to do her best, talking to people back in Odessa, which is being shelled. And we have all these Republicans traipsing down to the border to take advantage of an unfortunate death and a difficult situation there. Difficult for both parties, obviously. With no constructive proposals, of course. He's in the state of Texas, I believe, which is the governor of Texas is sending buses of immigrants up here. Now, luckily, to D.C., actually. And luckily, Catholic Charities is welcoming them and helping them. They're going to do fine. They're going to contribute to the economy up here. I'm glad to have them up here in Northern Virginia or in this area. And I think I speak for most people up here. But the demagoguery on immigration is of a piece with the lying about the election.
We have our Melanie Zanona right now, who has just left that press conference with Kevin McCarthy. So, Melanie, what was the point that he's trying to drive home?
Yeah, well, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is here at the border today. He was leading a congressional delegation. They toured the border, and they also heard a briefing from Border Patrol agents. And really, they were trying to call attention to President Biden's decision to lift a Trump-era immigration policy known as Title 42. They were warning that if that policy is lifted, it is going to lead to an influx of migrants at the border. They also called on Democrats to sign on to a bill that Republicans have that would make that policy permanent. But of course, lingering over all of this is a controversy surrounding McCarthy. He was caught on tape last week by the New York Times bashing Trump privately in the days after January 6th. He initially denied that reporting vehemently and said it was not true. Of course, then the tapes came out. I asked him, why was he not truthful? He continues to say that he didn't ask Trump directly to resign, which is, of course, not what the Times reported. He said that was not the question that was given to him by the New York Times, but it's worth noting here that he put out a lengthy statement after the Times story was published, saying that was totally false and wrong. And so he was on the defensive here. He questioned, why we're not covering the policies at the border, but we are here today, and we heard from him as well as many other lawmakers, including Tony Gonzalez, who represents this district, and they are going to be leaving here today.
Melanie, thank you. Bill,